Okay, I think hopefully it's working. Are we live? Yes, we're live. Look at this, is exciting. I've got my seal t-shirt on as well. I'm very much in the zone for today's seal lesson. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm just going to see if my live chat's going. Lizzie Day, I'm going to just do a test. Hello. Okay, I'll just give it a couple of seconds before I jump straight in with some seal info. Just going to take a few days. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Can you give me some thumbs up if this is all working? Hello, hello, hello. Oh, Ben Tolson's here. Happy days. Good old Ben. Right, I'll crack on. Hi guys, my name's Billy. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope the signal's okay. I'm in deepest, darkest Gloucestershire, so it can be a little bit intermittent, but we're going to dive straight into the worlds of pinnipeds and seals. But first of all, a little bit of background about me. I'm a zoologist on paper, sort of dabble in a bit of filmmaking and broadcasting stuff very slowly. I've just noticed that lockdown's turning me into a bit of a cockatoo. I mean, what is going on with this curl? What is that? Anyway, just seeing that in the reflection of the live video. So yes, I'm a zoologist and I'm a massive marine mammal nerd. I absolutely love them. I've been obsessed with marine realm since I was tender age of 2, and it was a 1993 Warner Brothers classic that sparked my enthusiasm to the natural world, in particular with killer whales. Now, earlier this year, me and Lizzie got the opportunity to do a Radio 4 show and the Nature Table, and I think hopefully Lizzie will appreciate this. And whilst recording, I admitted that I was a bit of an orca dork, and I've got a picture to show you, just to show my enthusiasm for the natural world and how at the tender age of 6, this was my bedroom wall. So some thumbs up if you can see my bedroom wall for me, that'd be lovely. But how cool is that? So just to show, I've been obsessed with underwater things since I was that big. And yeah, it's a shame I don't have that on my bedroom wall anymore. But yeah, going to sleep with a big killer whale next to your bedroom, God, that's how it all started off for me. And so I went to study zoology at the University of Exeter when I was 18, and I lived in Cornwall for 8 years. Since then, I've only just moved out of Cornwall. Sad to leave, but things are happening for different reasons, and we've all got to stay home and stay safe. But I ended up studying grey seals. So I started studying grey seals in my 3rd year as part of my dissertation, and I was using camera traps to look at their seasonal haul-out use and stuff like that. And that kept me going through my 3rd year, and I got to go out onto cliffs and look at grey seals. And eventually this turned into a master's by research. And then I spent 2.5 years looking at grey seals in Cornwall using camera traps, programmed them to take a picture every 5 minutes of every hour of every day. So you can just imagine how many pictures I ended up having to look through. But just a quick behind the scenes shot of me studying seals in action. There's a picture there with me having just checked a camera that I look at once a month that I used to go and check. And there's actually a couple of seals there. I used to only go down at high tide to check the cameras and, you know, just then swap the memory card and my batteries. So sort of a little close-up of a grey seal for you. So these are the chaps that I will be talking about for most of today's episode of Lizzie's fantastic Earth Live lessons. So this is a grey seal that I took a picture of in an MCZ in Cornwall in the Manacles Reef. And but as a whole, I'm a bit of a marine vertebrate fanatic. I mean, at the minute, I'm living in landlocked Gloucestershire, so I'm turning to badgers and foxes instead. But during the time of doing my research, I got the opportunity to go and study some other marine vertebrates, including, and something that was really exciting, was green turtles. And I spent some time in North Cyprus studying green turtles out there. And this was a little piece that we did for the Exeter team about satellite transmitters. So that was really quite good fun. But I mentioned orca dork. So this is something I really want to wrap up my intro about me about. So my childhood dream was to see a wild killer whale. I think like many people, they're just so iconic and wonderful. But it took me a long time to actually achieve this dream. It was actually only when I was probably about 22, I think, that me and a couple of mates, we were doing our masters by research and various things. And we decided to take a week off and we went to West Iceland. And after a few days of hard effort and boat trips, looking very chilly, very cold, but very, very happy. I think Richard actually had 12 layers on. I think I had 8. So, you know. But this was the moment after a childhood dream from a bedroom wall became a reality, because we had just seen this chap. and he was known as Thunderstorm. How cool is that? Thunderstorm, the orca. And he was in a pod of about 6 to 8 individuals. And it was just a fantastic experience. And this is how it's all really kicked off for me. But now it's time to kick on with the Pinnipeds. I've just seen Lauren's just sent in a question there. I'll come do some questions at the end. Thank you very much, but it was Matt Witt, but we'll come back to him. So Pinnipeds, what are they? So Pinnipeds are your seals, your sea lions, and your walrus. And the Latin for pinniped, if you break it down, pinna means fin, and ped, Lizzie, yes, orca, dork, he's here. And so pinny means fin, and ped means foot. So they literally translate as the fin foot. And I think that's a really nice way of explaining what they are. And there's 3 groups of pinnipeds, and the first is your phocids or your phocidae. Now, your phocidae refer to your true seals, what's known as your true seals. So here's a picture of a phocid. This is a Pacific common / harbour seal, and this is a picture. I'm sorry, I didn't really think about the mirror imaging. If that's mirror imaged, that's my bad. And this is a harbour seal that I took a picture of using a GoPro on a stick. Oh, good question. How many pinniped species are there? There's 33 species of pinnipeds, and I'm going to come into those. Nice one. Thank you, Mark, from that question. But yeah, there's 33 species of pinniped. Cool, you beat me to it there. So this is a phocid. Notice that phocid seal, no external ear flaps. But one of the other groups of pinnipeds are the otarids, and this is a picture from the same trip. This is a picture that I took of a bachelor group of stellar sea lions, and if hopefully you can see on this particular individual their external ear flaps. So that's a dead giveaway that otarids have external ear flaps. So your otarids are your sea lions and your fur seals. And then there's a third group of pinnipeds, and I do struggle to pronounce the Latin for this, so please forgive me if I butcher it. But I have to say it with a bit of a Cockney twang, because then I can say it. And that is the Odobinidae, and that is the walrus. Now, I've never actually seen a walrus in the wild before, so I've had to pinch this off Google, but hopefully that's okay. But yes, how amazing would it be to see a walrus in the wild? So yeah, the Odobinidae are your walrus. And what's quite neat is there's some really nice ways to tell these 3 groups apart. So as well as obviously ear flaps versus no ear flaps, it's also the way they move on land and in the water is another key way to tell them apart. So we're going to go back to the seals and the sea lions, the otarids. So when moving about on land, and you can look at this chap here, very sort of upright, leaning on his front flippers, sort of almost standing on all fours. And they can, on land, move about quite, very fast, run on all 4 of their flippers, and chase down penguins in some areas of the South Polar Seas. And in underwater, they will use their big front flippers. Hope you can still hear me all right. Use their big front flippers to propel themselves through the water, chasing fish or, seabirds or whatever they're after, or escaping, Mr. Killer Whale if they're on the menu that night. So 4 flippers to propel themselves through the water, which contrasts to our phocid seals, which have a very different locomotion altogether. Now, on land, these guys, admittedly, they look a bit clumsy and a bit comical at times because they'll do that sort of worm. I won't do an impression. Everyone will probably switch this off if I do that. But they do sort of like worm shuffle across the shingle or the rocks or the sand, using their 4 flippers to pull themselves along. And underwater, rather than using their front flippers, they will use their rear flippers, and using a sort of sideways fish motion, they will propel themselves through the water using these tiny little 4 flippers to steer and change direction. Now, through some of my field work, I've been very fortunate enough to swim with, not these guys, the common seal, but to swim with grey seals, and they use the same locomotion. And yeah, on land, they do look quite comical, but as soon as they're under the water, it's a whole different ball game. They're super fast. They can reach speeds of 25 kilometers an hour. And I like to think of them as mermaid dogs because they're so inquisitive. They'll come right up to you and have a little look. But yeah, very different forms of locomotion between the phocids and the otarids. How does a walrus get about? Well, this is quite interesting because it kind of takes a little bit from both parties there. So what the walrus does, so on land, this one, obviously it's quite upright. It uses all 4 flippers and does the sort of more like a sea lion as it walks around. It doesn't do the foetid seal worm. It can sort of waddle about on all fours. But then when it goes underwater, it adopts the swimming behavior of a foetid seal and actually uses its back flippers side to side to propel itself through the water. So it's quite neat how this one's kind of got the best of both. Plus, awesome tusks. Yes, excellent. So yeah, so that's a few differences between the foetids and the otarids. And like, it was Mark, wasn't it? Yeah, so like Mark asked, how many species are there? So there's 33 species of pinniped, various from, monk seals in the sort of the tropics, but the pinnipeds tend to prefer cooler waters. So, you find them lots in the polar regions, subpolar and temperate waters as well. So that's how, we've got temperate waters, which is why we've got grey seals and common seals in our coasts. But as always, there's always exceptions in nature. So we do have a few species of pinniped that occupy tropical climates and or subtropical. So you've got the Mediterranean monk seal, which is very rare, and you've also got the Hawaiian monk seal, very rare. There used to be Caribbean monk seal, but unfortunately that one's already gone extinct. But anyway, pinnipeds tend to prefer cooler climates, and as I was just saying, we've got 2 species of pinnipeds that we're very lucky to have in the UK, and these are these chaps. The grey seal, again, sorry, I forgot about the mirror imaging. The grey seal and the common seal. Now I'm going to tell you a few little things about how to tell them apart. Now, automatically, grey seals are a little bit bigger than your harbour seal or your common seal. They're known as both common and harbour. But what I quite like to look at is their noses and their heads. So, first of all, Mr. Grey seal, he's got a nice sort of oval shape when he's head on. I've just seen a question from Mike. I'll come back to that one. And the common seal has a nice sort of round face, quite squashed, round versus oval. And another way I like to think of this is grey seal's got quite a sort of a Labrador-esque dog-like face, whereas a common seal, rounded, quite like a cat face. So I think grey seal dog, common seal cat. And what's really cool about the grey seal, especially if you see him side on, big Roman nose, especially the males have got this huge schnoz. There we go, that's what I said. And the Latin for the grey seal is the Halicorus gripus, and this translates as the hooked-nosed sea pig, which is another really cool, fun fact. So I'm just going to show you another picture of a common seal just to sort of highlight what we were just saying about the cat-like faces. So yeah, nice cat-like face, and also sort of V-shaped nostrils is another good way to tell the common seal apart from the grey seal. So yeah, it's very much a V-shape, whereas the grey seal nostrils are almost parallel. So they're more like this, whereas a common seal is more like, I can't do a V. There we go, more like that. So common seal like that, grey seal like that with their nostrils. So that's another good way to tell them apart. But we're going to dive into the world of grey seals now, particularly in Cornwall, because I studied grey seals in Cornwall, and I'm going to sort of talk a little bit more about them. So, last October, my last autumn in Cornwall, sadly, I was doing a lot of sort of just more hobby photography more than anything at this time. But I took this picture of a female grey seal with her pup. Now, the pup is still a creamy colour, a white colour, so it's only a few days old, and that's known as lanugo. Now, historically, grey seals would have given birth to their pups, pre-ice age on snow and ice. So this is why the pups evolved to be born white, and they're still born like that today. And that's something from years and years and years ago, which is really cool. So this is a mother grey seal. Right, back to the camera traps briefly. So as part of my master's, when I was doing my research, I was using these to monitor the grey seals on a particular haul-out beach. And using a combination of the camera traps and data from human observations, we knew what the seasonal trends were like. And I'm just going to sort of go through a 12-month cycle for a grey seal in Cornwall. But I'm going to start at a bit of a random point. I'm going to start in June. Nice and summery. So in June, what are the grey seals doing? So they're out to sea, fattening up, feeding, eating as much fish as they can. So through June and July, we wouldn't tend to see the seals on the beach that much. You get a handful, but really, they're all out at sea, fattening up for the energy-draining pupping season. So grey seals got various things they eat, predominantly fish. They love sand eels. Sand eels are the small, skinny fish that you see often in puffin beaks in sort of documentaries and stuff. They love gadoids, which are your cod species and ling, and they also eat salmonids, which are your trout and salmon species. So yes, through June and July, out much fish as they can. And then through August, the seals would start returning in sort of bigger numbers. At the earliest, you can sometimes get seal pups as early as August, but typically the female grey seal will give birth to her pup in September and October. But we can still get pups through November and December and even into January, but the peak was through September and October. And one autumn, I got the great privilege to go to the Isles of Scilly to do some research on this and help do some field work on a pup survey around the Isles of Scilly in November. Amazing 5 days, and that's where we got to snorkel with a few big male seals as we'll get into these different places. And we got to do some amazing abundance estimates of how many pups were on the beach, and just a real beautiful place to go. And there was hardly anyone there, so that was a really cool trip. So, but she's had her pup. Now, this is what happens next, is probably my favorite seal adaptation. So she's had her pup. She looks after this pup for 3 weeks, and when it's born, the pup's 10 kilos. And when it's weaned at 3 weeks old, it now weighs 40 kilos. So it's put 30 kilos on in no time at all, which is a bit like me at Christmas. And at the end of this 3 weeks, she is exhausted and she's really skinny, and she's lost a lot of weight because the pup has taken all of the milk and energy rich. And so she's exhausted. But what she does do is she mates with the dominant male, known as a beach master or the bull grey seal, and she will mate ready for next year. But this is where it gets really cool, because her body's really weak and deprived of nutrients. So the fetus can't actually start developing. So she will fatten up for a couple of months now that the seal pup's off to fend for itself. And so come January, February, once her body mass has come back up to where it needs to be, then the embryo will start to develop. And then from then on, it's about a 9-month pregnancy. So that come the autumn, September, October, November, she will then return to the same beach, if not the same area, same cove, same cave, and give birth to her next pup. And I just think that's really cool that they can sort of time their pup for the following year and come back to the same time. One more fact I'm going to go into before I start answering people's questions is, how do they hunt and sort of stuff like that? And I'm going to use a pen and this paintbrush, it's not mine, to sort of pretend they're whiskers. So grey seals and pinnipeds in general have really super sensitive whiskers known as vibrissae. Now, what they will do is, if they're following a fish, they will use their whiskers to determine which direction the fish is going. Now, what's really cool is we have 2,500 nerve endings in our fingertips, right? So things are hot, we know they're hot because of our nerve endings. But a grey seal will have 1,500 nerve endings in a single whisker, and they have up to 44 pairs of whiskers. So overall, they have nearly over 120,000 nerve endings going through their whiskers, which is how they can then find their fish in murky water or at the deep dark depths. And I just realized I got carried away with whiskers, and I didn't explain what happens in January till April of the seasonal cycle of the grey seal. So what happens then, sorry, I got so carried away with my paintbrush and pencil then, is before the seals head out to sea again in the summer to start fattening up on all the fish, they will go through what is known as a catastrophic molt. So unlike your cats and dogs, which molt, often, seals will molt once a year, and this takes about 3 weeks. And this they usually do between January and April before they start heading off through May and June. They get a nice new coat through so that when they go offshore, they're all ready to go, get all their fish, and then the whole seasonal cycle starts once more. So I'm going to start, we're 80 minutes in, so I think we'll start going through some questions. If you've got any more, please fire them away. Mike Dixon, what's the best thing we can do to protect seals? Right. Pick up your litter when you're at the beach. Don't let any sort of plastics. If you've got a frisbee, you see horrible pictures of seals getting entangled in netting and frisbee discs and stuff like that. So in Cornwall, we actually have one of the highest entanglement rates for phosid seals in the world, which is really quite scary. There's a really cool paper about that if you want to read it, but it's kind of scary. So yeah, pick up your litter. If you see any ghost gear around, if you're on a beach, I know it's obviously daily permitted exercise at the minute, but all of that stuff is very harmful to seals. And disturbance-wise, obviously, if you're lucky to be watching them, keep your voices down, keep a low profile, and obviously go to designated areas that are safe to do so. Obviously, I'm not going to recommend that right now because we'll probably get in trouble for that. But yes, pick up your litter, keep your voices down, and try not to disturb them. And don't go to areas to watch them where there's lots of pups, because you will disturb them more. What's the biggest seal colony in the UK? Right, well, Nook is a famous one in Norfolk, where there is loads of grey seals. So as far as I'm aware, I believe it's the one in Nook in Norfolk. There's some big ones in Scotland, which I have seen, but I think on the whole, it's Nook in Norfolk, but I could be wrong. But I think it's that one. Is there any other questions? I realise we're at the 20-minute mark. Any other questions coming through? Oh, Lauren. Oh, yes. I was going to talk about my third year's project. So yeah, I had Matt Witt for my third year project. He's at the main campus now for Exeter, because you're about to do your research project in Cornwall. Excellent. Did you do the Marine Rescue Officer course while you're in Cornwall? I did, and I did that, and I've helped pick up the odd dolphin or two and put them back in the water, which was really exciting. And yeah, luckily it survived, so that's good. So I did do that. It's a good course. I recommend doing that. British Divers, Marine Life Rescue are a top bunch. Definitely get involved with those guys. Is there any others coming in? Or if there's any other things you'd like to know about seals that I might have not mentioned? Give it a second. Oh, Kevin, nice one. Yes, the beard. Did I say it? BDMLR? Yes, he's a medic too. Nice one, Kevin. I don't think I have any other pictures, but just to sort of finish up, wrapping up with the grey seal pup there, nice and new go, nice white fur, and yeah, put on a lot of weight in just 3 weeks, which is crazy. So thank you very much. Oh, one more. Teeth and line, do you know anything about this? Yes, about the leopard seal teeth and line and their filter feeding. Do you know anything about this? Yes, this is really cool because they can actually, and I know Lizzie will probably comment on this as well in a minute, but they can sort of filter feed. They feed on krill as well as, you know, going after penguins and stuff like that. They've got these special designed teeth, which I believe helps the krill get sucked in out of the water so that they can feed on that as well. So I think that's the right answer. I hope it's the right answer. But yeah, they do have some pretty cool teeth. And the leopard seal is one animal that it's massively on my list. You do get the odd few that live around New Zealand now, and I was lucky to be out there a few years ago, but I didn't see one. I did keep my eye out. But you do get the odd leopard seal in New Zealand now as well. But yeah, cool question there. Thank you very much. Right, well, I think we shall leave things there. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you learned something interesting about seals. Here comes the really bad pun, but I hope they got your seal of approval. Wait, that's why I wore this t-shirt, just so I could do that. So thank you very much. I'm going to sign this off now. And take care, stay home, stay safe. Don't forget to keep washing those hands, and I will see you all soon. Cheers.